Subotzky's solo exhibition titled Massive Nerve Corpus. This body of work contains provocative new paintings and works on paper as he continues to interrogate and self-explore white masculinity as well as the male psyche. While Mikhael joins us here this morning to tell us more about the project that is currently on display for public viewing at the gallery until the 6th of July. It's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
Let's talk about what influenced your artistic journey, just as a creative.
I was very influenced by my uncle, who was a photographer, and he was the one who encouraged me to pick up a camera and start taking photographs myself. And I went to art school from there, and then I guess always seen art as an amazing space that doesn't really have utility in life, and that lack of utility actually allows it to be a kind of experimenting ground and space where ideas can be tested.
Speaking of ideas, the title of your latest exhibition, Massive Nerve Corpus, take us through, what that means, and why don't you break down the concept for us?
Yeah. The words massive nerve corpus found their way into one of the paintings that I'm working on in this exhibition. And for me, so it's really about a kind of a sense, a feeling that those words associate with. They're not kind of sensical, they kind of were picked out of an encyclopedia that formed the basis of one of the paintings. But corpus, of course, refers to the body, but often also bodies of text and bodies of knowledge. And essentially this exhibition and this body of work looks at the privileged body, and in particular the white male body, one of which I happen to inhabit.
Yes.
And really what I'm trying to do is kind of look at the construction of whiteness. Whiteness was not some natural state. It was constructed with a huge amount of political expediency over hundreds of years, and that led to a huge amount of violence. And I think we're still really engaging and suffering from the effects of the violence that the construction of that whiteness led to, and so massive nerve corpus for me brings to mind a big clot of nerves, and these bodies that have both caused a huge amount of distress and are in distress as well.
And why is it so important for you personally to go on this quest where you are just exploring the entire concept of whiteness and what it means and what it's meant for a number of years, especially in a society like South Africa?
For me, it's just, there's a real urgency to it. I mean, I think it's a lot of the things that I'm exploring, I feel should have been explored many years ago, especially post-'94. And I feel, roads must fall and fees must fall in this country were huge wake-up calls. And it really, kind of watching that from the distance of my studio, really made me realize the extent to which I feel when I look and listen to white people around me, that we haven't actually engaged nearly enough with our privilege, and we haven't engaged nearly enough with the long effects of the violence that allowed that privilege, not just during apartheid, but very much going back into British colonialism and the long history of I guess violence that white people are still bearing the fruit of today, and that's not all right to me.
And so, just simply speaking, how would you actually explain to someone like Helen Zille the concept of whiteness and white privilege? Because there are lots of denialists around this issue, people who seem to think that it's simply other races trying to discredit the work that they've put in to have the benefits that they have, whether monetary value or social benefits or political benefits.
I mean, sadly, I don't think any of us can explain that to Helen Zille. And when those tweets came out about colonialism having positive effects, I was ashamed and disgusted, to be honest. I really, it's exactly that this idea that we must keep this statue up because it's history, no matter what the violence of that history is. It's so It's so not. On the one hand, it's just so inappropriate and hurts so many people. But on the other hand, I find, as a white man, I find it so self-defeating. You know, what do the symbols mean? You know, it means nothing whether the statue is up or down to us. But the amount of pain that statue caused means a huge amount. And I just don't get, I honestly don't get why somebody would argue for keeping that statue.
All right, let's go back to your exhibition and just talk us through the materials that you used in the various installations that are showcased.
Yeah, so my background is in photography, and over the years I've moved more into filmmaking and now collage and painting. So a number of the paintings on the exhibition start with photographs that I've taken. In fact, one was taken at the Wits campus during the Fees-Must-Fall protests, and I was amazed that the police were protecting the architecture. They were protecting Solomon Mashlangu Hall, which is this grand architecture of reason, Greek-Roman architecture, and symbolically the students were throwing stones at that architecture, and the police were protecting it. And that felt like a very, very crazy, inappropriate state to me. So I photographed that scene and I printed it on canvas, and then I've developed a technique of scrubbing away at the ink on canvas and then painting on top. And I guess the layers of paint that I add are really, for me, about kind of trying to see through the facade of our reality, because for a lot of people, despite the state of this country and despite the state of our psyches, kind of life just goes on. And I guess I want to kind of poke through that and puncture that the facade of the realities that we live.
All right, Mikhael, that's where we'll leave it. Thank you so much for a great chat and all the best.
Thank you very much for having me.
That was Mikhael Subotzky, a Johannesburg-based artist whose works is showcased through multiple mediums, including film installation, film, photography, collage, and painting. He was speaking to us about his solo exhibition at the Goodman Gallery called Massive Nerve Corpus. Do yourself a favor and go see it. Time for a quick break.